The crackling of the radio cuts through the silence of Pine Ridge National Park's ranger station like a blade through fabric. Static fills the air before Ezekiel Hartwell's voice emerges, steady but tinged with something that makes dispatcher Sarah Coleman sit up straighter in her chair. It's October 15th, 1987, and the autumn darkness has settled over the Montana wilderness like a heavy blanket. "Base! This is Unit 7, Zeke's voice filters through the speaker, accompanied by the distant sound of wind through pine trees. "I'm approximately 3 miles northeast of Marker Point, following up on those noise complaints from the Patterson camping group." Sarah adjusts her headset, glancing at the clock that reads 11:47 p.m. She's worked dispatch for Pine Ridge for 8 years, and she knows every ranger's voice, every inflection that signals routine versus concern. Tonight, there's something different in Zeke's tone, a hesitation that makes her fingers hover over the response button. The Patterson family had called earlier that evening, their vacation interrupted by what they described as screaming coming from deep within the forest. Not animal sounds, they insisted, but human voices carried on the wind, desperate and terrifying. It was the third such report in 2 weeks, all coming from different areas of the park's northeastern quadrant. Zeke Hartwell had volunteered for the night patrol without hesitation. At 42, he was one of Pine Ridge's most experienced rangers, a man who'd spent nearly 2 decades walking these trails, understanding the rhythms and secrets of the wilderness. His colleagues often joked that he could navigate the park blindfolded, that he knew every deer path and rock formation like the layout of his own home. "Copy that, Unit 7, Sarah responds, her voice professional despite the unease creeping up her spine. "Any sign of the source of those reported sounds?" A pause stretches across the radio waves, filled with the subtle background noise of Zeke's movement through the forest. Sarah can almost picture him, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, his weathered face alert and focused as he navigates the familiar yet somehow different landscape of Pine Ridge after dark. "Negative on visual contact," Zeke's voice returns, but there's something else now, a quality that makes Sarah lean closer to the radio. "But I'm hearing something out here, Base. Not sure what to make of it yet." The admission sends a chill down Sarah's spine, because Zeke Hartwell is not a man given to uncertainty. In all her years working with him, she's never heard him express doubt about anything he encounters in the wilderness. "Can you describe what you're hearing, Unit 7? Another pause, longer this time, and when Zeke's voice returns, it carries an edge that makes Sarah's heart rate quicken. It's like voices, Base, distant but clear enough to know they're human. Problem is, there shouldn't be anyone out here. No registered campsites, no approved overnight permits for this sector." Sarah checks her records, scrolling through the day's permits and registrations. Zeke is right. The northeastern quadrant where he's patrolling is designated as day use only, with the nearest approved camping area more than 5 miles south. "Unit 7, recommend you maintain safe distance and report back with your observations. Do not approach unknown persons in the dark." "Understood, Base," comes Zeke's reply, but there's a distracted quality to his acknowledgement. "The sounds are getting clearer now. I can make out individual voices, and they sound distressed." Now the radio crackles with interference, and Sarah adjusts the frequency, trying to maintain clear communication. When his voice finally returns, it's changed fundamentally, carrying an urgency and confusion that transforms the routine patrol into something far more ominous. "Base, these voices, they're not right. They're calling for help, but there's something wrong with how they sound. Like they're coming from underground or from very far away, even though I can hear them clearly. Unit 7, I need you to describe your exact location so we can send backup to your position. I'm following what looks like an old trail, maybe a game path that leads deeper into the forest than our regular patrol routes. The voices are definitely coming from ahead of me, and they're getting more distinct. Base, I can make out words now, and they're begging for help." The weight of responsibility settles on Sarah's shoulders as she realizes that Ezekiel Hartwell is walking into a situation that defies normal explanation. The voices that shouldn't exist, coming from an area where no one should be, calling for help in ways that disturb a man who's encountered every type of emergency the wilderness can produce. Unit 7, I'm dispatching backup to your last known coordinates. Please mark your trail and wait for assistance. Copy base, but I don't think I can wait. These people, whoever they are, they sound desperate, like they're in real danger. The radio falls silent, and this time the silence stretches longer, filled with a quality that makes Sarah's stomach clench with apprehension. At 12:23 a.m., after multiple failed attempts to re-establish contact, Sarah makes the decision to wake Supervisor Frank Morrison and initiate emergency protocols for a missing ranger. The search for Ezekiel Hartwell begins at first light on October 16, 1987. With a systematic approach that reflects both the urgency of a missing colleague and the methodical thoroughness that defines professional search and rescue operations. Supervisor Frank Morrison coordinates teams that include fellow rangers, local law enforcement, and volunteer search groups familiar with Pine Ridge's challenging terrain. Morrison approaches the search with the grim knowledge that the first 48 hours are crucial in wilderness disappearance cases. He's overseen dozens of search operations throughout his career, but the circumstances surrounding Zeke's disappearance carry elements that don't fit the familiar patterns of wilderness emergencies. The search teams focus initially on the northeastern quadrant where Zeke's last radio contact originated. What they discover immediately complicates their efforts. The terrain in this section of Pine Ridge is far more complex than their maps indicate, with steep ravines, dense undergrowth, and geological formations that create natural barriers and hidden spaces. Deputy Sheriff Maria Santos leads the law enforcement component with K-9 units designed to locate missing persons in wilderness environments. A German Shepherd Rex picks up Zeke's scent at his abandoned patrol vehicle, but becomes increasingly agitated as they follow the trail, whining and circling rather than maintaining focused, tracking behavior. Rex has never acted like this, Santos confides to Morrison. It's like he's picking up multiple conflicting scents, or something is interfering with his ability to track normally. The trail leads deeper into the forest, along what appears to be an old path, possibly dating back to the area's logging days. The path shows recent signs of use, but also evidence of much older passage, suggesting people have been using this route for decades. Search team member Jake Patterson provides crucial context about the area's history. This old trail connects to paths that logging companies used back in the day, he explains. But some of these routes go back even further, to when Native American tribes used this area for seasonal hunting and spiritual practices. On the second day of searching, Team 3 makes a discovery that shifts the entire focus of the operation. Hidden beneath fallen logs and deliberately concealed, they find Zeke's ranger hat and radio, both showing signs of hasty abandonment rather than accidental loss. More disturbing is the location. A small clearing surrounded by unusually large pine trees, their trunks bearing carved symbols. The clearing shows signs of recent activity, disturbed soil, remnants of what might have been a fire, and areas where the ground appears deliberately flattened. Morrison examines the scene with growing unease, noting details that suggest organized human activity rather than random wilderness use. The discovery raises more questions than answers. If Zeke encountered people in distress, where are they now? Why were his hat and radio abandoned in what appears to be a deliberately prepared location? Most troubling, why do the search dogs refuse to track beyond this clearing? As the search enters its third day, Morrison expands the operation to include specialized cave rescue teams. Pine Ridge's geological surveys indicate extensive underground cave systems throughout the northeastern quadrant, many unmapped and unexplored. If the voices Zeke reported were coming from underground, the search area might extend far beyond what surface teams could cover. The cave systems prove more extensive and complex than anticipated, with entry points hidden throughout the forest and tunnels connecting across miles of underground territory. Preliminary exploration reveals signs of human use. Makeshift lighting systems, stored supplies and sleeping areas suggesting long-term occupation by unknown person. But it's what the cave teams don't find that proves most disturbing. Despite clear evidence of recent human activity throughout the underground network, they encounter no people, no explanation for the voices that drew Zeke into the forest, and no clues about what happened to an experienced ranger who simply vanished while investigating calls for help that may never have been real. After 2 weeks of intensive searching involving over 100 personnel and specialized equipment, the official search for Ezekiel Hartwell is suspended. His disappearance becomes another unsolved case in Pine Ridge's files, leaving behind only questions and the haunting memory of his final radio transmission, describing voices that called for help in the darkness. The breakthrough in the Hartwell case comes not from the intensive search efforts of 1987, but from an entirely unexpected discovery 16 years later. On a crisp morning in September 2003, college students Jake Morrison and Beth Williams are exploring off-trail areas during a weekend camping trip, seeking photograph opportunities for Beth's nature photography class. The students are following what appears to be an old deer path when Jake notices something unusual about the rock formations ahead. What initially looks like a natural cave entrance reveals itself to be partially artificial, with stones deliberately arranged to create a hidden opening, nearly invisible to casual hikers. "There's definitely something man-made about this," Jake tells Beth as they approach the concealed entrance. Beth's photographer's eye picks up additional details suggesting deliberate construction. Smaller rocks filling gaps between larger ones, creating an entrance that's both stable and camouflaged. Their decision to explore the cave entrance will uncover evidence that transforms the Hartwell disappearance from an isolated incident into part of a much larger pattern spanning decades. Armed with flashlights, they squeeze through the narrow opening into a cavern that extends much further than expected, with multiple chambers connected by both natural passages and artificially widened tunnels. The air inside carries a stale quality, suggesting limited circulation, but also lingering traces of wood smoke and something else neither student can identify. It's in the third chamber they explore that Jake's flashlight beam illuminates something that makes both students freeze in shock. Against the far wall of the cavern, constructed from carefully stacked stones and decorated with carved symbols, stands an altar-like structure that immediately communicates ritual purpose and long-term use. But it's not the altar itself that transforms their exploration into a life-changing discovery. Scattered around the stone structure, arranged with obvious care and intention, are dozens of personal items representing individual human stories of loss and mystery. Wallets with identification cards, jewelry, clothing items, camping equipment, and other belongings spanning decades of disappearances. Beth's hands shake as she documents the scene with her camera. Among the items clearly visible is a tarnished metal badge reading Pine Ridge National Park Ranger, alongside the name that connects this discovery to a 16-year-old cold case, E. Hartwell. The altar structure tells a story of organized activity extending far beyond a simple hiding place. The carved symbols match markings that searchers found on trees throughout the northeastern quadrant in 1987. But here, they're more elaborate and extensive, covering nearly every surface of the stone platform and surrounding cave walls. Jake counts at least 30 different sets of personal belongings, each suggesting an individual person who disappeared, leaving behind the most intimate artifacts of their identity. Driver's licenses span dates from the 1960s through the early 2000s, representing missing persons cases never connected because they occurred across different states and jurisdictions. If you're finding this investigation as compelling as we are, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more mysterious disappearances that continue to baffle investigators decades later. "We need to get out of here right now," Beth whispers, her voice echoing strangely in the confined space. and we need to call the police immediately. Even as they prepare to leave, both students realize they've discovered evidence of something extending far beyond simple criminal activity. The careful arrangement of belongings, obvious ritual significance of the altar structure, and hidden nature of the cave system all point to organized group activity continuing undetected for decades. As they make their way back through the narrow entrance, Beth's final photographs capture additional crucial details. Evidence of recent activity including fresh candle wax, recently disturbed soil, and what appears to be a calendar marking specific dates throughout 2003. The realization that whoever created and maintained this hidden shrine might still be active transforms their discovery from historical mystery into active threat, requiring immediate law enforcement response. The law enforcement response to Jake and Beth's discovery mobilizes resources from multiple agencies within hours of their emergency call. What begins as a routine report of suspicious items quickly escalates when first responding officers recognize the potential significance and immediately secure the scene for federal investigation. FBI Special Agent Diana Fletcher arrives at Pine Ridge on September 24, 2003, leading a team including specialists in cult behavior, forensic anthropology, and cold case investigation. The initial processing reveals evidence transforming the investigation from a single missing person case into potential serial crime spanning multiple decades and jurisdictions. Forensic teams working under portable lighting document and catalog personal belongings representing at least 47 different individuals, with identification documents dating back to 1962. This isn't a crime scene in the traditional sense, Fletcher explains. It's more like an archive of disappearances, maintained by someone operating in this area for over 4 decades. The methodical documentation reveals patterns suggesting organized victim selection rather than random opportunity. Many missing persons represented were experienced outdoors enthusiasts who would be comfortable traveling alone in wilderness areas and whose disappearances might be attributed to natural accidents rather than criminal activity. Detective Ray Harrison from Montana State Police brings crucial historical context, having worked missing persons cases in the region for over 2 decades. His files contain reports of unexplained disappearances throughout the Pine Ridge area, dating back to the 1970s. Cases investigated individually, but never connected due to sporadic timing and different jurisdictions. We've had people vanish in this area for years, Harrison tells Fletcher. Always experienced outdoors people who should have been able to handle whatever the wilderness threw at them. We usually concluded they fell into ravines or got lost, but we never found remains. Forensic analysis of Ezekiel Hartwell's Ranger badge reveals disturbing details about his final night. The metal shows signs of deliberate removal rather than accidental loss, with scratch marks suggesting it was cut away from his uniform. Laboratory tests detect traces of substances that don't occur naturally in cave environments, suggesting exposure to chemical compounds used in specific industrial or ritual processes. Fletcher's team expands investigation to include ground-penetrating radar and cadaver dogs throughout the northeastern quadrant, searching for burial sites that might contain remains of people whose belongings fill the cave altar. The results prove both revealing and mystifying. Radar detects multiple areas of disturbed soil, suggesting burial activity. But cadaver dogs show no interest, indicating absence of human remains. The pattern suggests whoever maintained the cave shrine was collecting trophies, but disposing of bodies through methods leaving no detectable trace. This sophistication in evidence disposal points to extensive forensic knowledge or access to methods that completely eliminate organic remains. Dr. Sarah Mackenzie, a cult behavior specialist, joins to analyze ritual aspects of the cave site. Her examination of carved symbols and altar construction reveals elements drawn from multiple religious traditions, suggesting a syncretic belief system combining various mystical practices into something unique and potentially dangerous. The symbol patterns indicate a group that views their activities as spiritual rather than criminal, Mackenzie explains. They're not just killing people. They believe they're performing transformative ritual, serving a higher purpose. The investigation takes a dramatic turn when forensic teams discover a hidden chamber beyond the main altar room, accessible only through a narrow passage, requiring crawling through 40 feet of tight rock formation. This secondary space contains evidence of recent occupation. Sleeping areas, stored food supplies, and journals written in multiple hands documenting ritual activities dating back to the 1960s. The journals describe a group calling itself the Eternal Gathering that views Pine Ridge Wilderness as sacred space where they conduct ceremonies designed to achieve spiritual transcendence through absorption of wandering souls. Entries detail specific individuals called to join the Eternal Path, with descriptions matching several missing persons whose belongings were found at the altar. The climax arrives when Agent Fletcher's expanded investigation uncovers evidence suggesting the cult's operations extend far beyond Pine Ridge. Analysis of recovered journals reveals references to sister sites and seasonal gatherings, indicating a network of wilderness locations across multiple states where similar ritual activities have been conducted. The breakthrough comes from Dr. Margaret Stone, a retired anthropologist who studied historical use of Pine Ridge by various cultural groups. When contacted about the cave symbols, she provides context, transforming the investigation's understanding. These symbols aren't random mystical markings, she explains. They're based on authentic Native American spiritual practices, but corrupted and combined with European occult traditions. Someone with extensive academic knowledge created this hybrid system. And her analysis suggests the Eternal Gathering was founded by someone with formal education in anthropology or religious studies. Someone who understood legitimate spiritual practices enough to create a convincing but perverted version. This academic connection provides Fletcher's team with their first concrete lead for identifying the cult's leadership. University records from the 1960s and 1970s reveal graduate students who studied Native American spiritual practices in the Pine Ridge region. Cross-referencing academic records with employment histories identifies Dr. Theodore Brennan, a former anthropology professor who disappeared from academic circles in 1979 after allegations of inappropriate conduct during fieldwork. Brennan's research focused on death rituals and spiritual transformation practices, and his published papers demonstrate exactly the knowledge needed to create the Eternal Gathering's belief system. FBI records indicate he's been living off the grid for decades, with occasional sightings in wilderness areas but no permanent address since departing academia. The manhunt for Brennan and followers focuses on remote wilderness areas where the cult might have established new operations after abandoning Pine Ridge. But their decades of successful concealment have made them experts at avoiding detection, and search teams find only abandoned campsites rather than active locations where arrests might be made. The investigation reaches climax when surveillance teams spot individuals matching known Eternal Gathering member descriptions at a remote location in Idaho's Sawtooth Wilderness. The discovery comes through analysis of financial records, tracing equipment purchases to shell companies linked to Brennan's false identities. Agent Fletcher coordinates the approach with tactical teams trained in wilderness operations. Understanding the cult's intimate knowledge of underground systems could turn any confrontation into a deadly pursuit across miles of unmapped tunnels. The surveillance phase reveals the Eternal Gathering has evolved into a well-organized community of at least 15 adults who created an elaborate underground compound. The FBI assault on the compound reveals the full horror of what the Eternal Gathering became over 4 decades. Beyond ritual spaces and living quarters, tactical teams discover a workshop where the cult created sophisticated tools for their ceremonies, including restraint systems and chemical processing equipment, indicating their spiritual transformation process involved systematic torture. More disturbing is the discovery of detailed records documenting every victim since the 1960s, including photographs and descriptions of each individual's contribution to the eternal work. The files reveal Ezekiel Hartwell was specifically targeted because his ranger position gave him access to information about missing persons reports threatening the cult's security. Dr. Brennan's capture provides investigators their first opportunity to question someone with complete knowledge of the Eternal Gathering's operations. But his responses reveal a mind so divorced from reality that reliable information proves difficult to extract. He speaks of victims as willing participants in cosmic evolution and describes their deaths as temporary transitions to higher existence. The final tally proves staggering. Physical evidence links the cult to at least 63 disappearances across 7 states, with victims ranging from teenagers to elderly individuals, all selected because they were experienced outdoors enthusiasts who could be lured into remote areas where disappearances might be attributed to natural accidents. The Eternal Gathering case officially closes in March 2004. With Dr. Theodore Brennan and 12 cult members facing federal charges. But the investigation's impact extends far beyond the courtroom, forcing law enforcement agencies to reconsider how they approach missing persons cases in wilderness areas and leading to new protocols for investigating patterns that might indicate organized criminal activity. For Sarah Coleman, the dispatcher who took Ezekiel Hartwell's final radio call in 1987, the resolution brings both closure and renewed grief as she finally learns the fate of a colleague whose voice she heard transition from confidence to confusion to silence on that October night 16 years earlier. The knowledge that Zeke walked knowingly into danger while trying to help people he believed were in distress only emphasizes the tragedy of his loss. Pine Ridge National Park today operates under enhanced safety protocols, including regular patrols of the northeastern quadrant and improved communication systems designed to prevent another ranger from facing unknown dangers without adequate backup. A small memorial plaque near the visitor center honors Ezekiel Hartwell and other victims, ensuring their stories continue serving as warnings about darkness that can lurk behind calls for help in the wilderness. But questions remain about whether other groups like the Eternal Gathering might still be operating in remote areas across the country, using America's wilderness vastness to conceal activities that civilized society struggles to comprehend. The case reminds us that in our modern world, some of the most ancient forms of human evil continue finding new ways to hide and survive, waiting for the next unsuspecting victim to hear voices calling for help in the forest darkness. If this investigation into one of America's most disturbing cult cases has kept you engaged, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into mysteries and crimes that continue shaping our understanding of human nature at its most extreme.